Welcome back to Better Out Than In, the Boti show.
I'm Lucas. I was just like talking over you. I'm Lucas Luzar.
I'm Lee Armstrong, and that's our homie Charles.
Charles is a squirrel that we're pointing at off screen here.
He's coming, man.
I know. I don't have any food though.
Oh, he's gone. He was right there, man.
See, I give them. He's coming up. I give them crackers when it's on a rainy days.
Right.
Just because I feel like they only come on the rainy days. But now he's just having a sip of water. You can't see him though. He's down. He's like 2 feet away from me. But I'm calm, cool, and collect.
I saw a video the other day of this guy who's just like chilling with a couple squirrels, like giving them nuts and like water. He's like, "Well, you want some more water? You want some more water, bro?"
Yeah,
it's a pretty good video.
I don't know. There's something very interesting. I like that I can get to see them up close and observe them that close. But yeah. Anyways, welcome to Better Out Than In. Maybe let's. We got a little distracted with Charles.
Oh, we're good.
Charles
We're good. We're rolling. We're on it. We're in it.
So yes, today we are going to try to do something a little different, which is to have more of a themed topic. And we had discussed before the show, meditation would be the topic.
We're going to talk about meditation, what it means to us, how we found it, our individual experience with it, and just generally some misconceptions around meditation where it's very misunderstood. We just want to clarify some things.
Yep.
So I'll start.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, where do we start? Because when I think of trying to break something down, I think of the who, what, why, where, and who, what, why, where, when, how, whatever. You know what I mean? I tried to get through that so quickly, and then I realized I was like, no, I'm not going to be able to comb over this. But, yeah, so, like, I think starting with why meditate is maybe an interesting question to start. Like, why even meditate at all? And then we can get into
already.
Well, I was just thinking then we can with the explanation of why, then we can get into like, you know, what is then meditation?
Yeah. Okay, so why meditate? Well, the most simple answer is to clear mental clutter. Like the process of allowing, like dedicating time to just thinking the thoughts that we've been holding back. That's the most simple way of thinking of meditation for me. It's like allow those thoughts to think themselves out of your brain, because that's the only way for thoughts to leave your head is to think about them, and then they kind of like evaporate away in a sense. And the meditation is just dedicating some time to allowing those thoughts to uncover themselves and evaporate away out of your brain.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
But why is that? Why is that a good thing? Why is it a good thing to have thoughts evaporate out of our brain? Like, why is that? Why meditate at all?
Oh man, yeah, you'll sleep better. It's just like it's very calming. It'll increases focus. It'll help you in ways like it's like the exercise of mental health. It's like the mental exercise.
That is exactly for me when I say I ask myself that question. That's where my mind goes to. Is like meditation. Like why meditate is because it's the mental exercise. But physical exercise, we have a good understanding of, you need to have a certain amount of soreness to know that you're building muscle.
Yeah.
But we don't have that same association of building emotional muscle.
Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot about how thoughts are the muscles of the brain. So the muscles of the brain aren't so much neurons and specific pathways, because these pathways are borrowed and used for many different things. So it's hard to necessarily, I think, pinpoint where the muscles are. So then I started thinking that the thoughts are more of the muscles. So meditation is to exercise your thoughts. And what you brought up, like why meditate, when you said it helps you sleep, it helps you focus, it helps you with all these other things that are actually outside of the practice of meditating.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is an odd thing, and I think that's what's most interesting for me from like practicing meditation is that it doesn't necessarily help you in meditation. In meditation, let's move that back. In meditation, we realize how difficult it is, but then outside of meditation, we start to see these little subtle changes, and it's more or less control of our thoughts. Like now, in meditation, you learn to relax and just recognize And then in your waking life is kind of what I think of it outside of meditation, is when you're like awake and active. That's when these practices come into play.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a meditation coach I really like. Her name's Emily Fletcher. Have you heard of her?
No.
She invented like the Ziva technique. Anyway, she's got a book and everything, Emily Fletcher, but her tagline is like, you don't meditate to get better at meditating. You meditate to get better at life. It's the same thing with any other exercise. Like you don't do push-ups to be like the best push-upper. Like that's not the point.
Yeah.
You do it for all the other benefits associated with it. And it's the same in meditation.
Yeah, that's a good point, because like not everyone that goes to the gym is their job to be physically active. It's like we have a general societal like hegemonic idea that, you know, working out, even if your job isn't to be active, it's still good just for your health. So, you know what I mean? It's just not like you go to the gym so that you can get paid more. And it's like, no, I just go to the gym to maintain good physical health.
And everyone's got a different reason to go to the gym. Like some people are professional bodybuilders, and that's literally, and some people are monks who literally just meditate all the time and to like expand the boundaries of what meditation can do. Yeah. But like not everyone's a monk and not everyone's a bodybuilder, but still like everyone should work out and everyone should go to should meditate.
I didn't set the timer.
That's okay. You set it now.
I'm going to put it actually at
like 50 minutes.
I'm going to do 40 minutes, because I found that when we hit the timer, we would always go like 20, on average, about 20 minutes over.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm going to do just 40 minutes because I figured we were talking already.
We just get going.
Sorry.
And then the timer goes off, and then we're like, well, we got to finish this up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yes, no, but the point that you were talking about there, though, is this idea of like, sorry, I kind of lost it, but I know it's on the
it's like not everyone's a bodybuilder, not everyone's a monk, but like it doesn't mean that it's like working out and meditating is good for everyone.
Yeah.
Even if that's not your main focus.
Yeah.
But it has a slew of benefits.
So now there's many different kinds of meditation, and I guess we can get into now what is meditation. So there's a good argument for why meditate, right? There's this physical parallel that we just don't have, or not have fully recognized, but I think are coming to more and more so. But yeah, so what is meditation? How would you describe the act or the process?
Yeah, like I think we've kind of said this, like it's really just a moment of quiet.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, just like stare at the wall for like 15 minutes, or like close your eyes and just breathe for 15 minutes. Or like there's more advanced sort of techniques where you meditate to think about a certain problem, and you can like really just like keep a certain problem in your mind, and then again it's releasing the effort of thinking and just allowing the thoughts to kind of run away. And when you have a certain problem in your mind, you can allow the thoughts to kind of, you always come back to something. I think that's kind of the key. It's like it's the practice of refocusing.
Yeah.
So like the number one, everyone always starts with, okay, just breathe, focus on your breath, because everybody breathes. So it's easy. Okay, you're gonna get distracted. That's kind of the whole point. Allow those thoughts to happen, and once they've evaporated, it's like, well, now what? Breathe again, refocus, and like you kind of train yourself to catch your mind wandering, where you realize like, oh, I haven't thought about my breath for a while. Let me just like, thank you, thought.
Yeah.
Goodbye now. Back to breathing. And like with another technique, like focusing on a problem, you let your mind wander, and then you catch yourself and realize, oh, my mind's wandering, back to that problem that I had to focus on. And like that's just one of many examples. But what do you think? What's your favorite style?
Well, it's, before I even think about style, I think about like just what the experience for meditation has been for me, you know. And I think there's sorry, I'm just getting so distracted by that.
No, I know. Sorry, guys. There's construction behind us, but we're hoping that it's not louder than our voices.
It is intermittent, though. At least it's not like consistent.
It seems to be always when you're talking. So.
Yeah, there might be something to that. But you mentioned like the focus, right? As soon as I started talking again. It was just like quiet, and then I was like collecting my thoughts.
Oh, man.
But speaking of meditation and being able to focus, I think, I don't know, for you and me being audio people and have worked in the audio industry, like being able to kind of sort out certain sounds, like I guess I'm struggling doing that, but I feel like I have the ability to, the strength to. But anyways, let's get back on the topic of, like, we first asked why meditate, and then now it's like, what is meditation? And you were describing different uses of, like, you could have a single thought or a single problem or a single thing you want to kind of really focus in on, or there's that kind of thing, or it's like focusing on your breath.
Yeah.
And
or
I think
focusing on your body or anything.
Yeah. So for me, I think what it's interesting is that it's like I almost take a step back from that, and almost just meditation is just to realize that there's a lot happening. Like there's because that experience, what you described of getting focus and honing in on something, I think exists outside of meditation, right? We can do certain activities, whether it be working on a song, something creative, or maybe even playing a video game.
Yeah.
And you can have that focus, and you can have interruption of thought, and you could be like, oh, I have to think about this. This is work stuff. And you're like, but no, I'm playing a game. So you can have a similar type of focus outside of meditation. Meditation for me specifically also involves this active analysis of watching your thoughts.
Yes.
So it's not so much that I'm going to try to focus in on one thing. It's like I'm going to try to focus on my breath, but I'm also just going to become aware that it's very hard. And that's kind of just like an exercise. Like I'm going to start doing push-ups, right? And then the moment where it becomes so difficult that I can't even push another push-up up, that's when I'm done.
Yeah.
And so meditation for me ends in the very similar way mentally, where it's like I'm trying to just focus on my breath. And as I get distracted, I notice that, and then I go back to the breath. But as I keep trying to get back to the breath, it gets to a point where it's like I can't stop the flood. And that's when I know, okay, that's when I'm done. Like that's when my mind is saying we are exhausted, because focus is actually exhausting. Meditation is exhausting.
Oh yeah, like brain energy is so underestimated. Like people think when you sit at a computer and you're doing like mental work that it's like you're not getting physically tired, but it takes a lot of energy to power your brain. And meditation is a chance to sort of like recharge the batteries without fully going to sleep. But that's funny about sleep too, just as a little tangent. I found it really interesting to learn that like sleep has like 9 stages or something. Maybe I might have the wrong number, but the interesting part is that you don't lose consciousness until like halfway down the list.
Yeah.
It's like stage 4 or 5 of the sleep cycle is where you actually lose consciousness. So those first 2-3 layers, like that's kind of where meditation falls. It's like you slow yourself down and you're kind of sleeping, but without losing consciousness, and it's deliberate. But coming back to what we
No, I like that. I think I want to explore that a bit more. I've always thought that meditation is very similar to sleep. I mean, just the act of going to bed, I found was the exact same as starting my meditation.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm lying there in bed and my thoughts are just roaring, as all this stuff just flooding in, and it's like, moments ago, I was about to pass out, and now that I'm lying in my bed relaxed, now the thoughts can't stop.
All of a sudden you're restless.
It's a very common thing. And I think what's interesting is like, well, when the body was active, right, it was tired, but now that the body's relaxed, now the mind can like stretch.
Yeah.
And I heard this from, it was a movie that Jim Carrey was in. He played the character Andy Kaufman, and he was like running this meditation camp, and he's like, when you are meditating, it's like unrolling a carpet. And so with the point of meditation isn't to try to roll, it's just to let it unfurl itself. So it's like, let the thoughts come in, recognize them, give them attention, give them respect. You thought them genuinely. I think that's an important thing I always try to remember. It's like, I'm not trying to brush this thought away and say, oh, I'm disregarding it. I'm going, no, I genuinely thought this. This is important to me for whatever reason.
Acknowledge the thoughts as they come.
And then I can let it go. I have to address it. That's the only way I can let it go.
Yes.
So then I found with trying to fall asleep, it was the same thing as meditation. And I've definitely found times meditating where I'm like pretty much falling asleep and may actually have.
Yeah.
But I do think there is That's a great analogy. I think that's been my argument for people to learn meditation, because I'm like, we do it every day and we don't know it. It's when we sleep.
Yes.
So when we do it in a waking state, there are different benefits to that too. Sleeping while you're awake type of thing.
Yeah, okay. The point I was trying to make with comparing it to sleep is because sleeping is the only time that your brain gets to clean itself.
Yeah.
And like you have a whole lymphatic system that cleans dead cells away, and like you take a shower and you clean away dead skin cells so your pores don't get clogged. But like, we don't think that our brain, like when you're sleeping, your brain actually secretes some kind of fluid and it like literally cleans itself away, all the dead cells. And that's the only chance it gets to do that. And meditation is like a quick little cleaning. It's like it just allows that much more time to like declutter. And then, yeah, I don't know the science actually behind that, but like that's a huge major benefit.
The science that I know from meditation is more about, like, it is about that, like what happened, like how the brain gets to secrete those things is from brain waves and like gamma. I don't know, there's different, this is
Alpha,
where I don't
beta,
know.
Yeah.
But I don't know which is the meditative state. Is that gamma? I think it might be.
I don't know which one is officially considered meditation, but I know theta waves.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can look up the list of brainwave frequencies. But yeah.
I think that's where mantras and things like that come in, different vibrations, singing bowls, that kind of stuff for meditation as well, to help reinforce the relaxation of the mind. Even
Totally.
the Wim Hof,
slow down your brain waves.
The Wim Hof thing is I think really interesting way, because you get to relaxation through actually hyper excitement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it triggers your like instinct survival mode.
Yeah.
When you expose yourself to extreme cold, like your body has no choice but to survive, and your brain goes primal, and that's like, yeah, by triggering our primal brain, that's kind of where he's coming from, I think.
I would be
love
down.
Wim Hof.
I would be down to talk about the Wim Hof meditation, maybe more specifically out of all of them. Or
we can do that next. I had one more thing to say about what you were saying before about acknowledging the thoughts gently and not being frustrated when your mind wanders, because that's literally the whole point of meditating, is to allow your mind to wander and then refocusing. And there's another there's another analogy from the Emily Fletcher book where she says meditation is like hosting a party, and like you might have a date for your own party, but you're the host, so you're not gonna like be frustrated when your own party guests want to talk to you. You're gonna give them that conversation and then politely excuse yourself and go back to your date. And your date is your breath or your mantra or whatever you're refocusing on. So you want to be polite to those guests and say, yes, I acknowledge you, I respect you, and please excuse me now and have fun, bye.
Yeah.
And then the next guest will come along and sort of interrupt you, and then you politely excuse yourself and go back to your date.
I think it's interesting when it's a rude guest. Right? It's when it's the negative voice in our mind.
I never thought of that.
And we can hear the negative voice being like, you stupid idiot, and be like, I hear you, guest. I hear that you're frustrated. Please, it's understandable.
Kindly fuck off. Yeah.
No, not even. Like, you can stay at the party. You're welcome here, but also just understand, like, I recognize that. Like, how do you deal with someone who's frustrated at a party, but you really want them to stay there?
Yeah.
It's like,
because as the host, you don't want anyone. So yeah. I feel you.
Well, you're not gonna. If you kick someone out, you're kicking a part of you out, and
Exactly.
that's not a way to live.
Yeah. No, but I like that analogy of just like a way to remember to just gently excuse the thought and come back. Don't be frustrated.
Yeah.
I got distracted again. Dang it. Now I have to recount my breaths again. You're missing the point completely if that's how you feel about it. And that is how I felt about it at first too.
Yeah.
Because like all these meditation apps are like, come back, like they always emphasize like gently refocus on your breath, but like I certainly didn't understand that for a while. That party analogy was really good.
Yeah, I like the party analogy too, because it brings in the idea of like what I always think of, like how you treat other people is how you treat yourself, or vice versa. How you treat yourself is how you treat other people. So catching that negative person at a party, how do you react to that? You know what I mean? Is I think a good indicator of how you react to when you're being self-negative.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? A lot of people don't know how people are negative towards themselves because that's inner dialogue type stuff.
I'm certainly that guy. Like, I will just rage internally at like little things and just think that I'm so, like, today I literally left my house 5 times trying
it
to
5?
come here. 5 times. I got halfway to the bus stop and then we're like, oh, I forgot the phone clip for the tripod, or I forgot whatever, my Presto Pass. Like,
Yeah.
5 times I had to leave the house. So I was so frustrated, but I have to, like, and meditation is a practice that definitely helped me realize, like, okay, dude, it's fine. Just go back, get it. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay. And I was calm. I was frustrated, but I stayed calm. There's other times where I would have, like, been physically angry and, like, been just, like, you know, have broken stuff because I just get mad.
Yeah.
You know, throwing the game controller when I was, like, younger, you know, stuff like that. I know
Well,
lots of people do that.
I'm playing a game right now that is made by the same people who make Elden Ring. So it's a very difficult game. I've never played.
Apparently, Elden Ring was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Souls game, I guess, is the series. They made Elden Ring. They made this game called Sekiro as well, Sekiro. And I've been playing it. And the other day I was getting super frustrated. And the thing about the game is the more frustrated you get, the worse you play.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Right, so it's almost like designed like that in a way. Somehow it's very difficult. So you have to, stay calm. And a friend of mine in the chat was like, channel your inner calmness. And I was like, instantly I challenged. I was like, why? You know what I mean? And I in my head, I'm like, I know why calmness is good, right? But how, like, you don't just channel your inner calmness by saying channel your inner calmness.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
It's just like, it's like telling someone who's mad to calm down, and they're just like, what?
Yeah.
It's just like, yo, calm down.
Yeah. So I think again about this party analogy, right?
But that's really what you gotta do.
There's someone who's frustrated at the party. They're like, man,
You're out of chips.
you know what I mean? We left and came back 5 times,
Right, yeah.
right? And so I think how to channel the inner calmness is to just recognize and be like, yeah, there is some justification for you being frustrated.
Yeah.
Like, being frustrated isn't wrong. Like, yeah, you did forget something 5 times. Like, if that wasn't frustrating, then I don't know, then there's something wrong. You know what I mean? Because who
Yeah.
wouldn't find that frustrating?
Yeah. But it's like again, the key word I think in meditation, which I just realized this pretty recently, is refocus.
Yes.
So people think that it's just like focus. Meditation is pure focus, but no, it's practicing refocusing, and like that's a skill that you learn, and that's what had to happen for me this afternoon.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, just refocus. What's the point? Just go back, get it, whatever.
But see, what the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, when I'm frustrated, I think the focus is the frustration until you switch the focus and you choose to switch, right? Because the interrupting thoughts
yes.
that come when you're focused on frustration, like, meditation is a practice of focus, not necessarily a practice of good or bad thoughts. We have to learn the good and bad thoughts through our daily life. So when we are frustrated in a moment, the things that start to invade our thoughts from meditating, like practicing that ability to stop what we're doing and then go, hey, are we focusing on the thing we should be, right? The negative thought starts to get challenged. So what we're actually doing is kind of giving confidence to another part of ourselves, the host of the party, to say, hey, this person, though they're frustrated, and that's me, doesn't need to dictate how this whole party is going to go.
Yeah, you're not going to
You're
let
the
one
host.
frustrated guest kill
Right?
the whole vibe.
So the host comes in and starts trying to challenge that. And that's why I think meditation, we're training the host. It's this mediator. And so then when we change the focus, now the focus is on the positive thing. What's the invading thought? It's the frustration. Right? So and then we start to learn to address it, but then dispel it. Address it, dispel it, because that's the only way this guest is going to calm down, is if they know that they're being heard.
And the only way to allow that negative or frustrating thought to leave is to think about it and let it evaporate, like how we started. Like you have to think a thought for it to exhaust itself.
So I this is where maybe I disagree with you, because like in my sense, like, the negative thought is only negative. Like, I think of it as different people in my head, right?
Yeah.
There's different selves.
Yeah.
So this voice that is being negative isn't always negative. I think also maybe it's like I've been ignoring it for so long that the only way it's learned through conditioning to get my attention of the host is to be ultra negative. Right? So it's like, hey, it's like a kid who learns over time. If I say fuck, now you're going to look at me. Yeah. Every time I say the F word, you're going to look at me, Lee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
because
so then
any attention is good.
So then what did that negative side is not, it's using negative language, but I don't think it's actually negative, because when I really started to like almost in a sounds crazy way, have conversations with the negative side, because I would hear a negative thought and I'd be like, why do you think that? I realized like the negative side wants the same thing that I want. It wants the same kind of good outcome and what we're aiming for, but it needs to kind of be adjusted. It needs kind of some talking to.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I recognize you're angry and you want it to be daytime. But guess what? It's 4 a.m. and we all have to go to sleep right now.
We all have to go see it.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
And that's that part in our brain that's like, oh, I'm trying to get a good night's sleep. I'm trying to get a good night's sleep. And then this other part of us is like, but I'm like, I don't want to go to sleep. I want to party. And that's us when we're restless.
Aren't you hungry though? Yeah.
Because I've noted, I've talked with a friend of mine, the more I tried to like go to bed and be like, okay, I need to get a good night's sleep tonight. Every time I start with that mentality going to bed, I have a terrible sleep. Yeah. And the nights that I'm like, I don't care what happens, I have a great sleep. So it's weird, this pressure thing too, that this focus is what is invading or what we're focusing on. I think it's a little bit more complex, but that's why meditation doesn't help you in those things directly. But what it does, it starts to balance, starts to strengthen other like thought muscles, so that when you're focusing on one thing, you kind of actually being invaded and challenged.
Yeah, and you have to practice like being patient with all those invasions and acknowledging them and recognizing why they're happening, because that's all part of your brain is trying to tell you something. And that's like a really interesting concept that meditation allows a lot of people to see for the first time. It's like the separation between you and your brain. Like your brain is just it's a computer. And we sort of live inside it, but like there's something that we can step back and acknowledge our brain as being just a tool that we have. It's like, yeah, my foot is a part of me and I live through my foot, but I don't identify with my foot. Like I'm not a foot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I'm not a brain either. I'm not my brain. I'm beyond all this body.
Yeah.
And when acknowledging that and practicing living in that perspective, I think is huge. I think that's kind of what we've been saying. And then you can identify every like emotional character that lives in our brain as well.
Yeah.
And like we can be friends with them.
Yeah, that's emotional logic.
Yeah.
Emotional logic for me is like nothing is like, it's there for a reason. Right? And there's maybe it is so negative. Like I had a very negative voice for 29 years of my life. It still is around, but it's not so as around as it used to be. I mean, I let it have free roam of being negative towards myself. Wasn't until a friend of mine said like, Lucas, would you ever say that to me?
Right.
And now it was like, you're right. And then I started that's when these ideas started challenging. That's why I think the power of ideas can be very helpful. But
totally.
You were laughing when I was talking about the kid, or like just this language, and then befriending him and like.
Well, yeah, like the inner child that we have, because I've been thinking about this lately, like with the whole like your past self is kind of just like a child that you're responsible for.
Right.
And that whole idea, and so like that's like this inner child that's sort of like the results of their behavior is always lingering in us, and we're so hard on that kid. Like if that was an actual child, and like if I treated a child the way I treat myself when I'm mad at myself, I would be in jail. You know?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, you know,
you'd beat him
really
up.
hard on myself, and that's not healthy. And like when you let that negative voice win, it's not good for you. But like, yeah, like learning to treat that child with compassion and being patient with them, and realizing like, okay, like that is a kid who's actually now dead, and like their actions are final, and I just have to deal with them now.
Yeah.
And that's my only choice, is to deal with them. So am I going to deal with that in anger and like break my stuff and ruin my day because like of what like the dead version of me did?
Yeah.
No, that guy's dead. Like just, okay, man, I got this, don't worry.
Yeah, you're talking about in the sense of yesterday is dead. Like, you can't bring back what has been done.
Yeah, and that version of me, yesterday's version of me is dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, I like thinking about it that way, because then it's like, what is that guy? Why am I being mad at that guy? He's literally gone. Like, he can't fix this himself. I have to fix it.
Yeah.
Or celebrate what that guy did. Like, it's just like, you can treat him as a celebration of life for what they accomplished and not focus so much on what they failed at.
Yeah, I mean, I think about like, why do I even have a negative voice at all? Like, why is it negative? I guess.
Yeah.
Like, it serves some sort of purpose. Like, that's what I'm trying to think. So like, that's why I get cautious when I hear things of like the thoughts just go away, or like something is dead, and like, you know what I mean? Because in my head, I start to think about how it's like, my goal is to not necessarily, like, I can't get rid of this negative voice. I have to only understand it. Like, I'm in a party in my head and no one can leave. So I have to deal with that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's not even that they leave, but you acknowledge them. Like, there's another meditation analogy of like, your thoughts are like passing clouds, right? That's a classic one, where like the cloud just passes through and you think, it's a nice looking cloud, whatever. Or maybe it's a gray thundercloud, but it will pass over.
Yeah.
And like, it's not that they disappear, because there's still water in the sky, but it doesn't have to remain like present. And I think that's what I mean. I like thinking of like the thoughts. It's like breathing out a thought. That's kind of like how I visualize it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, there's like,
there's so many ways to say it. But
there's the couple. At first, I wanted to say I thought you were looking actually at a cloud when you're like, "That's such a nice cloud." Like, I thought you were actually looking at one for a moment.
No,
like you actually
there
took,
are clouds,
but like you actually took a moment though. You're like, "This is the practice." Then you're actually like, "But that is like, look at that. I'm gonna look at that cloud right now too." You know, and actually
it kind of
look
hurts
at it.
for me to look at the sky. Honestly, it's bright.
But yeah, I mean the thoughts. I guess I won't get into that, but I will. The analogy that I've come to talk about with meditation is the water talk. And I know Ross used to say like especially when other people, like when we were working and doing stuff, like meeting a whole bunch of people, like I was always like, "Oh, have you met Lucas?" And he's like, "Oh, has he done the water talk with you yet?" Because I used to always kind of talk about this, and this is just kind of my nature. I can't help but do it when I talk about it.
I don't know if I know the water talk after all these years.
Yeah, the water talk.
Are you like a Bruce Lee water talk?
No, it's
okay.
it's my own water talk, where I think of like meditation, like, or I think of how our minds operate like a rushing river, right?
Yes.
And the river has all these like ripples, and it's hard to, like, when you look into a rushing river, it's hard to see your reflection.
Yeah.
And it's rushing and it's moving, and I think that's our normal like operating mode. And that's where it should be. It shouldn't necessarily be a calm river all the time. It needs to kind of be rushing. Like when we're doing things, we're not necessarily thinking about ourselves or like a complete accurate image of ourselves, right? It's only really in meditation do we actually start to like hone in on something like that. But so meditation for me is like this practice of calming this river down. So if the rivers are thoughts and it's rushing with thoughts, and that's the way it should be, meditation is the practice of like instigating this calmness. And then through calming that river down, when you look into the river, you start to see your reflection more accurately.
And you can start to see like the life in the river. Like you can see like all the different fish and like.
Yeah, well, the analogy could go there, but I think
take it there.
For me, the emphasis though is on the reflection of how the reflection resolution changes from something that you can't recognize to something that you can. And this is where I also think this analogy is that, like, why does slowing things down create better resolution, especially when we're talking about thoughts, is that in our head, the thoughts are moving so fast, and like a rushing river, I don't think we fully appreciate how fast. right? And
Yeah.
it's only there's often times when we're explaining an idea out loud or when we're teaching something that we'll find that something doesn't make sense. But in our head previously, it made perfect sense.
Yeah, it's
So,
like you just this.
so that's the river, right?
But
So the
then-
river
yeah.
can hold all these thoughts, but it might not make sense and it's a little chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
As you calm it down or even as you speak the words, you force your mind to slow down.
Yeah.
And then that resolution, that reflection, even when you're hearing yourself go, wow, I just said that and that doesn't make any sense at all. Weird. It's like weird how it doesn't make sense when I say it out loud. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's not weird, actually. I think that's something of nature that we need to observe, and another reason why it's important to meditate.
Totally. Yeah, man. Like that's actually a practice that I do, is like explaining things out loud to nobody,
Yeah.
because I'll run into walls all the time and I'll be like, how do I, and then you break it down even further and like I'll say this stuff out loud, like to nobody.
Yeah.
And then I come to a lot of answers that way.
So I would encourage you though to explain it to somebody though, like actually not to
That's
a
what this
person,
is about.
like to your, like record it into yourself, because this is also for your own solo channel.
Yeah, that's kind of how the YouTube channel is going to work. Like, yeah, I'll try to remember to like turn the camera on when I get into one of these moods and see what happens.
Yeah.
I also have a list of things to talk about, but
You also got to plan though to stop the recording and then listen back to it
yeah.
and actually watch. You know what I mean? That's the hardest thing to do.
Well, I'll be editing it for micro content and stuff too, but yeah, no, slowing down is super important, and like simplifying a complex concept, because like it's same thing like driving. Like I know how to drive somewhere, but then trying to give directions is different from knowing how to get there, right?
That's
it's
a
like,
good point.
well, look out for the big tree, and like when there's a little weird thing in the field, you turn left. Like that's how a lot of people know. Like you map something out in your head, but like then to tell you, like, I don't know what the street's called, it's the one after the lake, like, you know.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. It's the same idea, like when you have to actually break down the details and zoom in and slow it down, and you need a higher resolution view of the river, it's useful to practice that.
Yeah. Well, I just remembered, like we were on the question of like, we asked why meditate, and now it's like, what is meditation? And I think we're kind of getting to something that's always bugged me.
Yeah.
The way people will sometimes tell me like, oh yes, I meditate, or something like that.
Okay.
Like for me specifically with that calming the river down is like, you have this intention of observing your thoughts and observing what changes from these two different states. And just that alone, not necessarily this is good, this is bad, just pure observation.
Yeah.
And then in retrospect of that meditation, you'll kind of figure some things out, and to also see parallels in your waking life. So there has to be like an intention before you even sit down to meditate that you're going to do this observation, right? So I think that people that sit down and just do the practice of focusing, breathing, and don't necessarily think about that observation are going to get the natural benefits of meditation. But there's like a deeper level, which I think is where we get, like, I don't know, this
Well, that's just kind of like a more intermediate practice, because like meditation is a practice that like you never master. If you think you're a master at meditating, like you're wrong.
But that's not the thing I was trying to say. The thing that bugs me is not when people say they're a master, but that when people go like, oh, when I'm driving, I meditate.
Oh yeah, no.
And it's like, you can absolutely drive and meditate, but do you go into your car with that mindset? Or is it in retrospect that go, oh yes, I have experienced similar mind states that you describe when you describe meditation, and I meditate when I make music. And it's like, is that while you're making, like, do you go in with this focus of like, I'm going to observe how my thoughts work while I'm making music? Because that is actually now meditating and making music.
Kind of. You're describing flow state.
Not necessarily.
That's kind of like
flow state is when you are not necessarily thinking, but the observation of your thoughts is not necessarily trying to do anything with flow. It's noticed that when you're in flow and when you're out of flow.
Well, yeah, because the flow state is when you're like, oh yeah, I feel that when I'm making music, I'm just totally immersed, and I'm in, like, that's flow state. But then like the intention,
I see.
Being intentionally in flow state is super hard, and that's what meditation practice can help you with.
Yeah.
By like with like pro athletes, when they need to get in the zone for a race,
Yeah.
like they intentionally enter a flow state and that's takes years and years of training, and like, you know, sometimes they can't do it, but like the best will, when they perform well, that's what they're doing.
I think that's a good way to describe it too, that we're training to get into flow state. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
But I like that because flow state is more commonly associated with like an impulsive thing, like creativity just comes. But actually, creativity is not impulsive. And actually, I think impulses are where a lot of things go wrong in our life. And we don't even understand impulses because they happen so freaking fast.
Yeah.
But
that's what adrenaline will do for you. Like if you're into like extreme sports and like rock climbing with no rope, or like hill bombing on a longboard or something, like something that takes an extreme amount of precision and focus, like that adrenaline will shoot you into a flow state. And that's why people get so addicted to this rush of you know, like skydiving or something. Like there's no choice but to be 100% present because your survival depends on it. And that sense of urgency, like that's what the Wim Hof cold exposure training teaches you. Like you just adrenaline, you go survival mode, you're completely present for like, that's the longest 2 minutes ever when you sit in the ice bath.
But you're also calm.
Yeah, you force calm because there's no other choice. Because
Yeah.
that's how you survive cold, is by calming down and going, you know.
There's a weird mix of not calm and calm though. What's happening?
Your body's not calm.
Yeah.
But your mind has to be.
But you also are keeping your body, like your body's still not like flailing around crazy.
Exactly.
But it's still hyperactive. So I think it's what's interesting is I don't know. Flow state is a whole other topic.
Yeah,
the main thing that I wanted
to
say was that I disagree when people say that they do an action and activity and then in retrospect that it is meditation.
I agree with you too, because like what they're describing is flow state, and you're describing like, no, meditation is intentionally setting aside time to practice that. And like when you realize later, oh, like when I walked home from school I was meditating, and like kind of, sort of, but no is the answer. Like, no, that was just, you know, a thoughtful walk. And there's walking meditation. I've been practicing that walking meditation. It's you never know if you're walking slow enough.
How do you find it? Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, that's just like the refocus, right? Because like you're walking slow and then you kind of look around and then you're like distracted and then you're like, wait, am I walking slow? Am I walking too fast now? And it's like, it's the exact same thing as refocusing on your breath, but you're refocusing on the pace of your walk.
Yeah.
Am I walking slow enough?
Well,
just walk slowly. Don't just breathe.
The refocus is to actually focus on the fact that there's no answer.
Exactly. There's no right way to breathe.
So the focus is actually, it's an odd type of thing, because you'd think focus is to give you one answer. But the actual focus is the lack of answer. That's where, like I'm saying, this practice of meditation isn't so specific. What it's doing is trying to cultivate like just different muscles of our mind, which is thought.
Yeah.
So there's an impulse of thought that particularly goes to trying to find an answer in everything. And there's things that we should be finding an answer in absolutely everything. It's not that that's a bad thing. It's just that, do we know that we're always in that mindset? Mm-hmm. And maybe there's some discomfort that we feel when we can't when there is no answer. And that's when you laugh. Like I laugh when I'm like doing the slow walking meditation, or even like eating a sandwich slowly. I start to laugh because it's like I'm struggling so hard. Just give me an answer so I can go to my autopilot. Just tell me what is the pace, and then I can not have to think so much. You know what I mean? And it's funny because, I don't know. It's just this getting comfortable with not getting an answer is it's a weird thing, but it's just an exercise.
Yeah, and like so often in life, like the answer is not singular. Like there's options, and depending on the context, one option might be better than another, and that's not like neither is wrong.
Right.
It's context dependent, and that like getting okay with that.
Yeah.
Is kind of part of this.
I think of analogy of like I'm trying to get an answer of how slow I should be walking, and I keep going, is this slow enough? No. Is this slow enough? No, there is no slow enough. We're too fast. And I'm getting relaxed in like, okay, there is no pace. Just now enjoy the walk. Mm-hmm. So how I find that happen, like how that exercise is then used in like my waking life when I'm not necessarily focused on trying to not get an answer, is when I'm working on a song and I'm working on these different layers. And I'm putting something, I'm trying to find something. I'm like, this isn't working. This isn't working. This isn't working. And I'm just getting down this barrel, this downward spiral. I'm just wasting time at a certain point. I'm getting depreciating or diminishing returns, however you want to say it.
Diminishing returns.
You know what I mean? And so that's where the focus of that practice comes in, of like, wait, I'm trying to find answers. Maybe I should just stop on this song. Like, maybe this isn't the song. Like, maybe this is, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get an answer for this and force it and force this shape. You know what I mean? And then to learn to kind of relax. And I think that also reflects with people too, giving people time, like when we were talking about what's entertaining for the show.
Yeah.
You know, and to give people that chance to, like, we shouldn't try to find the answer always. Just continue doing what we do, trust our gut and intuition, hope for the best. But also we should give people a chance to, I don't know, experience it for themselves and tell us, you know, what we may think is wrong.
Yeah, because everyone's got a different answer for that, and they're all relevant. So yeah.
Yeah, no.
We're good.
No. Yeah.
We're good. Okay, so the what, the why. We kind of covered how.
Yeah, we could.
When.
If we didn't go into, well, you could, I guess, some specifics with walking meditation with how. And we did talk about.
We've been talking about how the whole time.
We've been talking about all these.
Yeah,
who,
really.
Why,
So like, when do you meditate?
That's a good question. Yeah, I used to try to meditate daily, as best as I could, and I was really good at that. I mean, I started meditating when I was really like young. I found like a Tai Chi. My brother did Kung Fu, and he's 9 years older than me, so he had all these books, and I found a Tai Chi book, and it was talking about Tai Chi, but the first chapter was like, you need to learn meditative breath. And I think I was in grade 6 at the time. So I don't know how old I would have been.
10, 11.
So yeah, somewhere around there. But anyways, so that's, I started meditating young, and that's the timer. Started meditating young, but then tried to be like really consistent, and then I would go through these phases and seasons of like being really good and then not doing it, being really good, not doing it. My inspiration as a kid was because I wanted superpowers. So that was like the thing. But over time of doing meditation and doing it for that purpose, I realized like I don't really care about superpowers. And so then I kind of got really lackadaisical with my meditation, because I'm like, it's not giving me, it's giving me all these other great things. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm growing and learning and becoming more aware. But, I started to think like, I need this schedule. And then it wasn't until I heard this guru talking about meditation. He says, you know, you do meditation to get self-awareness, but like you always have self-awareness. So you actually always have the opportunity to practice meditation, which is just to be aware. When you do your meditation, that's an exercise, right? And to know when you need exercise and when you don't, especially for someone who, like maybe you and me, who spend a lot of time exercising regardless in our minds, you know, it's like maybe we don't need to do a meditation every day. Whereas someone who maybe doesn't think a lot about their own thoughts would benefit from having a scheduled thing every day, just as like, you know, someone who doesn't want to go to the gym every day would benefit from having a gym partner, right? And then now they can be more consistent and get the benefits of physical health.
I think you just hit the key word. It's consistent. Consistent is the point. I don't think it matters whether it's every day or every week. I mean, every day is ideal. I try to meditate every day, at least for a few minutes. But like some days I go longer. Some days it's like a quick thing. And like I do little micro meditations where it's just a few breaths where I just, I'm getting flustered. Let me just like stop and take 10 breaths.
Yeah.
And that feels like forever.
Yeah.
And then I always feel better after that. And that's like, I call that like a micro meditation. And some days it's 5 minutes, some days it's an hour. I try to do every day. I definitely don't hit every day. But I think for someone who's new at meditating, if you meditate once a week, you're making progress. And then, like that's not so bad. Like don't try to jump into an hour a day, because then you're gonna think that's torturous.
Yeah.
But like when you
time.
get used to how 5 minutes feels, when like I was trying to do 15 minutes, and I would have a clock And like I would like kind of like peek at the clock, like I'd be like, that was for sure like 10 minutes, and then I peek at the clock, it's like 3 minutes has gone by.
Yeah.
And then like, okay, you just wait for the 15 minutes, and then like you kind of get used to how that feels. But anything is better than nothing, I think, and consistency is the key. Like if you, okay, this month I meditated 4 times, next month I meditate 6 times, the next month 10, the next month 30, consistency is, I think, the key word.
Yeah.
The key word there.
I think I mean, for me personally, I don't focus on it so much as consistent, because I feel like it's personally for me, just as a personal feeling and opinion, is like it's not going anywhere.
It's as needed.
Well, it's like not even as needed. It's like it's my obsession is thinking about thought,
Right.
and have that awareness. So whether I'm like the practice of sitting and focusing on breathing is what I call meditation.
Right.
Where when I take a cold shower, I'm also kind of meditating, because I'm experiencing the cold, but I'm observing my thoughts. But I don't necessarily like classify that as meditation. Like when I say, how often do I meditate? It's like specifically sitting and just focusing on breath.
Mm-hmm.
Not some of these, not even walking meditation. What I kind of, that's like more specific exercises where it's like the ultimate exercise is just the sitting and breathing.
Right.
Which is what I guess now we're going to get into semantics, but when I think of meditation, it's like, I do think there's many activities that are kind of connected to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they can be, but I think ultimately, oh, that's my watch alarm.
You got bare alarms, bro.
If it's not the saw, it's the alarm. But yeah, no, I guess I never thought of like that. But that's why I think consistency for me isn't so much of a thing, because I know I'm taking a cold shower every day.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm doing, I know I'm going to catch my thoughts at one point during the day. I'm probably going to do a 10 breath kind of thing and maybe not even realize it. I'm just going to be like, I need to calm here for a moment and not even think like I need to take 10. It's more just like, I'm going to, you know what I mean? So I don't think of that necessarily as meditation, but it is, and you're right. And I guess that's maybe a disservice that I've been kind of doing for myself. I used to beat myself up for not doing sitting meditation every day.
Yeah.
But now I think I recognize like, okay, I'm doing all these exercises. Meditation is an exercise. That's it. It's not mystical. It's not anything. It's literally an exercise.
Yeah. It's just a practice, and that's just one version of the practice. Yeah, I agree.
I think the sitting, breathing, focusing on breath is the ultimate.
Yeah, and that's what I
ultimate.
try to do that every day. I don't consider like other like meditative activities like a long walk or whatever, like that is meditative.
Yeah.
But I try to live meditatively.
Yes. Yeah.
In general, and that's what. So you don't meditate to get better at meditating. You meditate to get better at life. So
Yes,
when you have this calm filter on everything, like everything's just better.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one word for it. It's just better.
Yeah. An analogy to that is like I don't work out to be strong through the day. I work out to actually have a better sleep. Because
Right.
like finding out that there's a relationship between my exertion and getting food and then actually resting well requires me to work a certain amount. So I think I could
For
see
sure.
that similarity.
I thought about that when you were saying like the thoughts are always there, or the breath is always there. What were we saying? But anyway, I was thinking the analogy like, yeah, like you always have muscles, but you only work them out. You only do push-ups
Right.
at certain times. But like you can also live in a way where it's like like little things, like when I open a door, I try to have like good form on my lats
Right.
and shit and stuff like that. Like, and like when I try to have like good form in all the activities I do, which is like I learn what that good form is from working out.
Yes.
And I don't consider opening the door a workout, but I am doing it with good form in mind, and like
Yeah.
that's sort of similar. Like, yeah.
I think about that when I'm responding to a text.
Hmm.
Like I have to have good form in my mind. What am I responding to? What am I actually reading here?
Yeah.
And what am I actually saying? Like, am I listening to this person actually? Or am I projecting or whatever? You know what I mean? And I think that's like the mental good form of meditation. Because through meditating, you realize you're like, I'm super frustrated. But you're like, actually, I'm not even frustrated. The thing I thought I was. That was like such a minor thing.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think just to kind of get closer to closing this is one of the things that I thought was really fascinating about And it was Wim Hof that kind of got me onto this idea of like, why is meditation, like focusing on breathing, why does that help us so greatly mentally?
Yeah.
Right. And I thought like breathing is involuntary and voluntary. It's one of the few things in our body that is both.
Sure.
We can control it, and also when we're not thinking about it, it goes on its own.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting is that focusing on breath through meditation is actually getting us like closer into our minds of where this voluntary and involuntary things meet. And there's so many other things that we learn, almost like emotional response is involuntary. We don't really choose how we're going to respond emotionally to something.
But it is kind of.
Right?
Yeah.
It is and it isn't. I think it isn't in the sense that we have to just like when you're frustrated because you left, it's like you're not voluntarily saying, I'm going to be frustrated about this. It's like I'm reacting.
Responding.
You're responding.
Yeah.
Right? But then to let yourself be dictated by that frustration would be reacting.
Exactly.
Like when we break down even the word to react, you're
Yeah.
reacting like a play. You're
Exactly.
redoing the same act.
Yeah.
So that's where responding to your reaction is I think.
Yeah, so it's like by almost suppressing the reaction and consciously responding. That's sort of the difference between those words, right? Like you're saying, like you don't act and then react. You act, something happens, process it, respond consciously.
I don't think reacting is bad though, and that's just where
It happens anyway. You're gonna react, but you can react
not even
in your mind.
Not even that. Reacting is good. I will even go as far to say that.
Okay.
And challenge this thing, because when you do the Wim Hof and you hold your breath, and that moment where you breathe in after holding your breath for so long, there is some involuntary breath going on, because you're kind of like, whoa, that was crazy. And now you're like, you're not even thinking about breathing anymore, and your body is like, we're going to react and take over your ability to consciously think about breath and not breathe, actually. So I think this is where like the mind doesn't dictate what's good and bad thoughts, right? Reacting and responding aren't inherently good and bad. We're not saying one is yin and yang. They're both.
No.
Like this is where I think like, why is the
I
negative
just think
voice?
reacting is more involuntary and responding is more voluntary. That's it.
I agree with that. With that, but I'm trying to say that the involuntary stuff is still good.
Yes.
There's a great thing that we breathe without thinking.
Yeah.
And so there's a great thing that we are actually reacting in some circumstances.
Yeah, that's like what instinct is, and it's super important. But sometimes if you're constantly reacting with like negative emotions, like that's something you want to look into and work on.
Yeah. Well, if you're always reacting, then you're not responding. And that's the balance of the.
Exactly.
If you're never thinking about breathing, then you're always just involuntary breathing. And what is the benefits of that? Well, you can get through life, but there's many benefits of voluntarily breathing.
Right, of course. Yeah, being deliberate with how you breathe.
Voluntarily working out, voluntarily giving answers or opening up, voluntarily being vulnerable has benefits. The benefits are because it's voluntary, not that because you're involuntary giving these things up.
Right.
Or involuntary having to work out. So that's where I think maybe we'll end in this, but maybe the next one we can talk about it.
Oh, meditation's going to come up a lot in our conversations,
But
for sure.
Is this definition of love that I've heard, which is to willingly and consciously sacrifice for something. And that's where this voluntary part, I think, comes into play. I think it's just cool how we can now split up voluntary and involuntary. 100% I agree. Involuntary is react, voluntary is respond. And I think there's something about breathing that helps us learn reacting and responding.
Yeah, find where the line is between those things and be able to, Yeah, I like that a lot. And I hope you like that too.
The finger guns, man. We gotta be careful that someone could get hurt.
Don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions or comments about these things. Like this.
Keep your finger guns in them holsters, though. I don't
Yeah. Like these are just things that we love to think about and that we are always thinking about and talking about. So we started this podcast to invite you into the conversation as the listener or the viewer, whichever platform you're on. And we welcome you into the conversation. If you have something to add or to let us know,
Sounds good.
We should start a Twitter. We need a Twitter account that people reach out on us.
I mean, that stuff comes, man. In my mind, the main thing is that we're recording.
Yeah.
If we feel like we need, like I almost feel this too with my Instagram. It's like no one was asking for a Don Fay Instagram.
Right.
So it's not really like successful because of that. So
No,
there's
of course.
there's an audaciousness to doing things before there's demand. So
No,
that's
yeah,
why.
in due time. But I was just thinking, I wanted to shout out our Twitter handle. We don't have one, so the Boti Show. Better out than in. I don't know. Do you like the Boti Show? We never really talked about it. I threw
like
it out
it.
there, but
I mean, the better out than in is what it's. I mean, it's the same difference.
it's just
to
that there's
me.
already one. That's why. That's the only reason I even started thinking about alternatives.
I mean,
Better out than in is the podcast.
worst case scenario, we'd change what this one's called, but I don't know. I'm always gonna have better out than in somewhere.
It's
in my
called
life.
Better Out Than In. That's
Yeah.
what it's called. Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've always said, so I don't care if someone else has a podcast. I said it.
As
I've
you
always
always
said
say.
it. I've always said it. I said it before them, and I'll say it after.
Yep.
Better out than in. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Take it easy.
Cheers. All right,
Nice.
let's go, bud.